I've been an air traffic controller for over a decade. I trained at one of the best programs in the country and graduated near the top of my class. From there, it was a few years of bouncing around small airports, late nights, and a lot of empty skies before I made it to the big leagues. When I finally got a position at a major control tower, it was an airport called Fox Hollow International. It was a small but busy airport that sat in the flat plains of Kansas. Located near the geographic center of the United States, Fox Hollow earned a reputation for bizarre occurrences, attracting the attention of pilots and conspiracy theorists. Some called it the Bermuda Triangle of the Midwest, because there were some legitimately eerie and unexplained events that happened there. Fox Hollow had a long history of strange encounters. Pilots reported mysterious lights and dense swirling fog banks that would appear and disappear without warning, often engulfing entire sections of the airfield for minutes at a time. Navigation systems went haywire. We had multiple accidents with smaller planes nosediving into the runway or on either side of it. Some planes flying into Fox Hollow encountered time slips, where clocks showed delays that pilots swore didn't happen, and aircrafts would land hours later than scheduled, with no fuel discrepancies or evidence of turbulence. Ground staff began speaking of the Fox Hollow Loop, a legend that claimed planes and people alike could vanish, only to reappear without explanation. Most people assume air traffic control is like a game of high-stakes chess. Just keep your head down, stay alert, keep the planes from colliding, and you'll be fine. But there are nights when things get quiet, when the radio static hums in your ear, that something far stranger slips through the cracks. One night, close to midnight, I got a call from a small jet with the call sign Echo Bravo 9. Normally, you know the call signs of every plane you're tracking. You could recognize them in your sleep. But Echo Bravo 9? I'd never heard of it. The pilot's voice was slow and slurred, like he was exhausted or in a trance.
This is Echo Bravo 9 requesting immediate descent. I don't know where I am.
I frowned, glancing at the radar. The screen was empty. No planes in his supposed area. Echo Bravo 9, confirm your position, I said, trying to keep my tone steady. Silence, just static hissing through the radio. After a long pause, his voice broke through again, this time cracked and low, almost like a whisper.
We're too high up. Way too high up.
Every instinct told me something was wrong. I repeated my request, fingers hovering over the emergency contact, and then, out of nowhere, a blip appeared on my radar. The screen read 90,000 feet, impossibly high for a commercial jet. At that height, you're talking about the edge of the atmosphere, where it's nearly impossible to breathe, where the sky is more black than blue. Echo Bravo 9, come in, I said, my voice barely more than a whisper now. You're at a dangerous altitude. The radio crackled, and his voice came back, weak and strange.
It's so cold up here. Can't see anything but stars. So many stars.
I sat there, frozen, staring at the radar as his blip flickered, jittered across the screen. I tried calling him again, but there was nothing. Just silence and static. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the blip vanished, leaving only a blank screen. I spent hours that night searching for any record of Echo Bravo 9. I checked every database, every flight log, every missing plane report, until I found it. The file said it had been lost at sea 2 decades back, and had never been found. Another frightening encounter occurred one morning just before dawn broke. My console lit up with an incoming call from a flight I wasn't expecting, Zulu Charlie 3. The pilot's voice was shaky, struggling to form words.
I don't know how to say this.
He stammered, voice tinged with an unnatural panic.
We took off from LAX hours ago, but when I look out the window, we're still over Los Angeles.
That didn't make sense. They should have been hundreds of miles past the Rockies by now, closing in on the Midwest. Zulu Charlie 3, confirm your position? I said, fighting to keep my own voice steady. The pilot responded with coordinates that showed them hovering over Los Angeles. My heart skipped. Zulu Charlie 3, that's impossible. You're 3 hours into your flight. There was a long, agonizing pause on the other line before the pilot spoke again, and this time his voice was barely a whisper.
The city. There's crowds of people in the streets. Jesus! They're killing each other!
I could feel my pulse hammering in my throat. Zulu Charlie 3, adjust course. Turn back immediately, I ordered, but there was only static. I thought I'd lost him. Then his voice broke through, ragged, like he was on the edge of something unimaginable.
There's nowhere to go,
he whispered.
We've been flying in circles. It just won't end.
His breathing quickened, nearly a sob.
And there's another plane.
Another plane? I asked.
It's us,
he said, his tone hollow, defeated.
Flying beside us. Exact same plane, same tail number, same everything.
His voice trembled.
They're looking right at us. I could see myself flying it.
In all my years, I'd never heard anything like this. I opened my mouth to respond, to say something, anything, but his voice dropped lower, almost a whisper, as if he could feel whatever it was getting closer.
It's like we're trapped,
he murmured, barely audible.
Caught in something that doesn't want to let us go.
Then, the signal cut out, leaving only silence. I checked every log, every radar record. There was no trace of Zulu Charlie 3, just an ordinary morning and an empty sky that held no answers. Another night, one where the sky was ink black and unusually still. No stars, no moon, just a void overhead. The radar flared. 6 fast-moving objects entering airspace with no transponder codes, no flight plans. Military, I assumed, but the call signs Lima Echo 1 through 6 didn't register in any database. Before I could hail them, the planes appeared through the fog, descending in tight formation. They were jets, sleek, cold, and outdated, like they belonged to another era. World War II, maybe. Each craft glowed with an unnatural translucence, their forms half flickering, like ghosts forced into the visible spectrum. As they touched down on the runway, their landing gears didn't even screech, just silence, like sound had been swallowed whole. Then I saw them. Figures climbed out of the cockpits, tall, rigid, slow. Soldiers by the look of them, helmets, oxygen masks. But their movements were stiff, mechanical, like marionettes tugged by invisible strings. I grabbed my binoculars, heart hammering. Their uniforms were soaked in red light, pulsing from inside their chests like an infected heartbeat. One by one, they assembled on the tarmac in perfect formation. No one said a word. I tried to radio them. Nothing. Then, it happened. Without warning, a windless burst of pressure rippled across the runway. The aircrafts began to shimmer, their metal surfaces vibrating with impossible speed. And then, like a switch had been flipped, they turned to mist. A deep crimson mist, billowing outward like blood vaporized by heat, swallowing the soldiers and their planes in seconds. No explosion, no flame. Just silence and red. It spread across the field and vanished into the night, and the radar went blank. When the ground crew scrambled out to investigate, there was nothing left. No scorch marks, no debris, no tire tracks. Only a faint iron smell in the air, and one final echo on the radar, a signal that pulsed in an impossible pattern. LE-01. Origin classified. Destination null. My scariest experience, though, was one shift during the winter, just after midnight. I got a panic call from a pilot inbound on a route that shouldn't have taken him anywhere near my airport. The call sign was Delta Sierra 3, a commercial flight bound for another state entirely. His voice came through shaky, barely coherent.
Requesting immediate clearance to land. I can't explain it. There's something out here. Something huge. And there are things floating around it.
I pulled up his information, expecting to find a glitch in the system, but there was nothing in the manifest. Delta Sierra 3, please confirm your position. What's your situation? He came back, voice quivering.
They're outside. They're looking at us. They're not human.
His breath quickened, and I could hear terror in his voice, something that gets drilled out of you in flight school. He was way off course, but I had to make a judgment call. Delta Sierra 3, you're cleared to land on runway 3. Just get here safely. As his plane approached, I looked out from the tower, scanning the sky for any sign of it. That's when I saw it. A massive, dark shape hovering above the plane. It looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. Metallic but shifting, with lights that pulsed in strange rhythmic patterns. And circling it were figures, maybe 5 or 6 of them, floating alongside, almost weightless, moving with eerie precision around the craft. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Delta Sierra 3, are you seeing those things? I asked, my voice shaking.
Yes.
The pilot whispered.
They're still out there, watching us.
His voice cut off as the plane touched down on the runway, and as I focused my binoculars, I saw the UFO shift and float closer, rising until it was level with my tower. My stomach dropped as I realized it was moving directly toward me. It hovered so close that its strange, opaque windows were practically inches from the glass. I peered inside and saw an interior that defied explanation. Shapes floated in the air, liquid and light, twisting in spirals, bending in impossible ways, as if the inside of the craft was alive, breathing. The figures hovered within, watching me with eyes that glowed a pale blue, expressionless but intent. I felt paralyzed, unable to tear my eyes away. The figures drifted closer. They moved with a fluidity that did not match gravity or any sense of physicality, as if they were gliding through water, not air. They floated in front of the tower, close enough for me to see them clearly. Each one raised an arm, thin and elongated, shimmering with a strange energy. Then, with a silent and terrifying ease, they passed through the glass of the tower, entering as if the glass was nothing more than vapor. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet as they hovered inside, surrounding me. The figures were silent, their pale blue eyes fixed on me, unblinking and indifferent. One by one, they raised their hands, and a surge of energy rippled from their fingertips. The air crackled, and in an instant, every monitor, every screen, every piece of equipment in the tower sparked, crackled, then melted. I watched in horror as the consoles twisted and deformed, wires sparking and screens dissolving into molten metal and plastic. Years of data, all wiped out in seconds. The figures then turned their gaze on me. I was paralyzed, my legs locked in place as they floated closer, hovering just inches above the ground. They raised their hands again, and I braced, but they didn't touch me. Instead, They simply stared, studying me as if debating something I couldn't comprehend. A cold dread washed over me as their blank, pale eyes bore into mine, devoid of any empathy or understanding. Then, just as silently as they'd arrived, they floated back out through the shattered remains of the control tower. The craft was still hovering outside, and they rejoined it, disappearing into the metallic structure. With a sudden, unnerving speed, the UFO shot upwards and was gone, leaving only the eerie silence of the airfield. Moments later, the hum of engines announced a convoy of black SUVs pulling up to the tower. Men in black suits, faces stern and impenetrable, poured out, swarming the tower. They took everything. Every melted console, every shattered piece of equipment, everything the beings had touched. I barely had time to catch my breath before a pair of agents pulled me into an interrogation room, demanding I answer a barrage of questions. Their expressions never changed, no matter what I said. By the end, they pushed an NDA in front of me, their eyes giving no hint of what would happen if I refused. By morning, the airport was shut down, indefinitely. I was transferred to another control tower, far from Fox Hollow. They told me it was a promotion. And to this day, there's no record that any of it happened. No mention of Delta Sierra 3, no record of the UFO. Hell, there isn't even any records of Fox Hollow International Airport. Sometimes on quiet nights, I still see those lights, pale and flickering. They drift across the sky, too slow for a plane and too fast for a star. Sometimes they hover near, right outside my window, casting an eerie glow through the blinds. I never open them, but I can feel the presence there, watching.